Okay, thanks everybody. We're now ready to roll. We're here at the Clevertouch Technologies gallery here in the Barbican. We've got a socially distanced crowd. I'm going to get them to give you a quick shout out. Those sitting on the sofas and the comfy seats, can we all wave, everybody? And a shout. Thank you very much indeed. Brilliant. Okay. So we're here at the Clevertouch Gallery, as I said before. We have a socially distanced crowd next door, but with us on the webinar, we have Helen, who's also going to wave again, who's sitting opposite me in their boardroom. Hi, Helen.
Hi, everyone. Helen
and I can actually talk to each other if we look across the table like this, so perhaps it's a bit weird for the Zoom. James Millar, who we've just been discussing, is the spitting image of Tom Daley, the Olympic diver. And he's just won a silver medal at the World Championship. So well done, James, for that accomplishment.
Thank you very much.
James is up in Scotland, I think.
I am indeed, yeah. Hello.
Yes. And we have Shaun with us as well. Shaun is the Boxlight and the Clevertouch Technologies Chief Technology Officer. Shaun, where are you dialing in from today?
I'm in the southeast of the UK.
Excellent. Okay, well, thank you all for joining us. So we're going to kick off the webinar properly. We want lots of questions from the audience, if we can, throughout this next hour or so. Let's get started with who Clevertouch Technologies are. They went through a massive rebrand early this year. Who on my panel wants to take the question about the branding?
Well, I'll take that. All right, so yeah, we rebranded just recently from Clevertouch through to Clevertouch Technologies. We were intending to do a big launch at ISE last year, but obviously with COVID restrictions, that didn't go ahead. So we've just started really getting out there, and obviously this is one of the first events where we've been able to have people into the Clevertouch Technologies gallery. It's an amazing space, and it just really encompasses where we're going in the future. So for all of you who know Clevertouch, we're an award-winning manufacturer of interactive panels. We're really well known around the world with that kind of technology, but we're also very proactive. And what we've been looking at is the fact that we need to be more than just interactive panels. So we've back in 2017, the company acquired a digital signage company, which was DalyDOOH, and we've now just launched a new product within that. So we have what we call our ecosystem. And what we're doing with our gallery is showing the world that we're not just interactive panels, we're everything. We can create an entire ecosystem of communication solutions using our one platform. So that's where we started, but I think Shaun can probably tell you a little bit more about the side of the product, of the branding from a business perspective.
Yeah, thanks, Helen. Yeah, quite some years ago, the sort of life cycle of the company, we identified the fastest growing areas in our industry, which is interactive collaboration and digital signage, and which is obviously why we acquired the digital signage company, and then went through a process of integrating that technology into all of our products to culminate where we are today with the Clevertouch Technologies, which is kind of the wrapper that goes around the whole lot, and obviously the new software platform Clevertouch Live, which pulls all of our products, interactive, non-interactive, room booking, collaboration, software, and digital signage, all under one banner, if you like, and one solution.
And tell us a little bit about Boxlight Corporation then, because I know, Shaun, you were one of the founders of Clevertouch, I think, but Boxlight Corporation acquired parts of the whole business last year as well. How does that fit in exactly?
Yeah, so as the company grew, we got to such a size that we needed to grow bigger and faster. And the company Boxlight, who were predominantly in the US and were strong in the US, and with some business in EMEA and the UK, and we were the other way around. Our strengths as Clevertouch and a brand were predominantly in EMEA in the UK, Australia, and Asia, and we were doing a certain level of business in the US, but we knew that we needed to fast track that business in the US. Both had a similar lineup of products, so it was in terms of interactive technologies, digital signage, and audio-visual solutions. So combining the two companies basically just made us much stronger globally.
And of course, Boxlight is a NASDAQ listed company, which is quite good.
Yes.
You interviewed your CEO, Mark Starkey, last week. He joined you a year ago. He's the president, I think, sits on the board of Boxlight as well. Tell us a little bit about what a good year you guys have had with Mark as the new CEO. I'm looking at Helen because I can look at her across the table. Let's start with James. James, how's Mark been to you for a business?
Yeah, I think it's been really promising. He's a really hands-on CEO, got loads of energy, really positive attitude to the whole thing. And I think most importantly for everything, he's enabled that investment. So it's enabled us to kind of go forward. So, if we look at the place you guys are sat at the minute, the London Gallery, what a space that one is. And then, even moving forward to things like the Clevertouch Technologies, the Clevertouch Live system that we recently launched, which obviously we're going to speak a lot about.
Yep.
Moving on again, that's a massive step up, and throughout it all, obviously from my point of view, there's been no furlough throughout this whole horrible situation we've been in, which is obviously massive.
Yeah, I think Mark said that you grew as well in the last year. Mark did some call with the NASDAQ a week or so ago. I think you had quite good results.
Yeah, we had a fantastic Q1. And obviously sort of looking forward as well. So in March, we had a record order intake across the entire group, actually. So it's the largest order intake of business we've ever experienced. And we're seeing double-digit growth, sort of 40% across all different territories, which has been fantastic. And as well as Mark joining the team, we had Pat join the team as well, who is our CFO, so he's the group CFO. And so the whole kind of mixture there works really, really well, and I think that's really helped with our success.
I think you've got about 200 employees, or just over 200 employees, but many people don't realise your true global nature. I mean, we see you at shows in Europe, and your brand's particularly well known in the UK. But I was surprised, I think, to see so many of your partners and things in Australia, where I think you're almost number one, South Africa, etc. Helen?
Yeah, Australia, obviously I'll take that question. We're number one in Australia with ASI. They're one of our best partners. Honestly, they are very proactive. They're obviously part of the education sector side of it. They're very, very strong, but they're also building our relationships with the corporate market over there. So it's really looking promising. And just sort of to reiterate what James has been saying with regards to the furlough, having the directorship that we've got has been extremely motivating for all of our staff to actually know that we're getting through this without having anyone furloughed, and actually growing our team, not just additional directors, but our actual BDM team as well has grown. So it's been a really positive year for us, and I guess that means that coming out of this now, we're going to see a lot more build on what we've been doing over the past 12 to 18 months remotely, and really seeing things come together.
I have a question on that one, Helen. Our first question has come in. During the pandemic, COVID-19, obviously, have Clevertouch Technologies introduced any product features that have come out of the, dare I say, the pandemic experience? I guess working from home and really not touching things. So, are there any product features that we've?
Yeah, absolutely. We launched our Clevertouch Live digital signage platform, and what we did was actually look at a lot of the impact it was having in the marketplace on the digital signage side of it. Pre-COVID, digital signage was all about touch screens. It was being prepared to make changes at dedicated times, particularly in retail and hospitality. They wanted things set up when they expected demographics to come through. But what our team have done is looked at the fact that people don't want to touch something in a public environment. Interactive panels are fantastic in a controlled environment, in school classrooms, in meeting rooms, where you know when people are coming to and fro. But in a public area like a shopping centre or even a hospital, you just don't want to be touching things at the moment. You don't know how clean it is. So people want to use their own devices. So our team put together a lot of different features that actually enable the audience to interact with the devices of their own, with the screens, and still control the information on there. And we've also got a lot of other technology which enables people to make changes instantly via demographic changes. They don't have to rely on what their normal trends are, because at the moment we don't know where things are going to go. So yeah, we've definitely put together a lot of different things.
And Sean, I think most of your stuff was, or all of your stuff was cloud-based, even from day one, wasn't it? Which must have helped you with the pandemic.
Yeah, so our digital signage platforms and our software platforms were cloud-based as well as locally based as well. But I think that what's happened during the pandemic is under this quote that I read from Bloomberg that it's the greatest advancement in audiovisual technology since the internet, and I think that's absolutely true. It's fast-tracked everything in terms of the acceptance of cloud-based, audio, visual, remote, distance, and all the scenarios that we're working in has meant that it's just, in terms of technology, hardware and software, it's meant that we've all been able to, ourselves and many companies have been able to put huge amounts of effort into pushing forward with platforms that probably would have taken longer to be accepted, especially cloud-based, but now it's perfectly accepted as the way forward.
Yeah, we're seeing this almost as like a requirement now. Whereas cloud before, you used to say to somebody, "Oh, it's cloud-based," they'd be like, "Oh, that's quite good." Now it's almost okay, good, because that's what we need, because we've got these remote workers, these flexible workspaces, and actually you're never going to be on site 100% of the time anymore. It's just changed. So giving that cloud does add that added flexibility, basically.
That's interesting. Helen and I were talking just before the start of the call. It turns out I've been to your showroom more times than Helen has.
Yeah. Based in North Devon, for any of you who know where that is, it's a long way when you're actually travelling via public transport. And I think James can probably get you from Scotland a lot swifter than I can too. So something to be said for that. But it is such a great space. I'm looking forward to the practice opening up and I can come back out here again.
Yes, it is a great space. Anybody has a chance to come here, speak to Adam, the marketing manager, and come and have a look. It's got a boardroom that we're in now. Next door to us is a huddle room. There's some nice hot desking area, and a kitchen, and lots of space to play with all the touch and the touchless screens that they've got. So, and it's a nice area of the City of London. So, do come and see that for yourself. We have another question in, which is about Clevertouch Live, which I don't think we've touched upon. Get it? Touched on there just yet? Clevertouch Live. You get all the things with my moderation, trust me. After the rebrand, you launched Clevertouch Live, is the question. What can we expect that's different here? Who wants to take that one?
Do you want to kick off, Helen?
Sure. Well, I've been talking about some of the different features that we've created. So let's talk about what they actually are. So we're completely different. The model that we adapt for Clevertouch Live is a no ongoing fee subscription model. So that's completely different in the marketplace and definitely going to value with a fee. So for our customers, they can offer their end user customers a complete investment up front, and then there's no ongoing fees to have to look at budgeting for in the future. But then that also means that that includes all of our different products. So all the features that come in Clevertouch Live are all inclusive. You don't have to bolt on. So I mentioned some of the things that we've been doing with our development team, getting things like what we call QR codes. So everyone knows a QR code, very popular over here in the UK. Now that we're going back into pubs, you swipe it, you can go in and order your drinks. But we're going a step further with that. You can create a QR code within the platform. You then put that onto a presentation, and the audience can actually interact. And that was what I was talking about before with their own mobile devices. They can interact with that QR code. It brings up a range of different options for them to be able to create changes on the screen. So if you look at a scenario with our health sector, which is really ramping up at the moment, they're using it as wayfinding. So when you walk into a reception area of a hospital or a clinic, you can scan a QR code, it'll bring up all the different clinics that you could go to. I can bring up Costa Coffee, or I can bring up any kind of florist. And then the person using their own mobile device is what they want to hit on the screen. That comes up with a whole big wayfinding map, and they can then go on their way. We also then do it a little bit further, where they also take the URL with them. So that means they have additional information that comes after that as they leave. But we also do that with internally as well. So account holders can have mobile devices, and they can change menus based on the time of the day or the demographics that are coming into the store. There's a whole range of different things we can do. But I do some of the demos, but I know James has probably done quite a few demos on Clevertouch Live as well. So there's probably stuff that I haven't included as yet.
Yeah, I think that like you touched upon at the start, that the main thing is the flexibility and the simplicity of the solution. That's something that, before it does all these fancy different things, that's something that end users definitely want. They want to be able to actually use the thing. So there is that. I mean, on that QR code thing, we were working with an estate agent where you're walking past and there's potentially a few houses on the market. You could, as an end user, scan the QR code and then hit one of the properties that appears on your phone, and then it changes the screen. So rather than you being quite insular and saying to your family, look at my phone, this is what I've got, you can view it on this big, nice and bright screen with everybody and have a chat. And like Helen said, it then diverts you to a URL. So then you can go and kind of book a viewing or whatever at the end of it. So it's giving that empowerment to an end user in a really simplistic way as well. I mean, you could probably create one of those in 15 to 20 minutes. So it's not a rocket science type thing to do either.
I think one of the big USPs for the platform and our whole digital signage platform is that we've designed it to run on any product. That's allowed us to develop our product range. So we have a traditional digital signage player, which is effectively a box. But then obviously we have our non-interactive screens where the digital signage platform is embedded within the screen. And obviously we have our touchscreen range, and we were the first manufacturer in the world to embed a digital signage platform in a touchscreen device. And we have our room booking panels. What Clevertouch Live enabled was all of those products could sit on one platform, and that one digital signage platform that's doing different things with different solutions. So it can create room booking, it can create messages and alerts, it can create traditional digital signage or interactive customizable launchers. All of those things now are combined across all of those products. So for example, a room booking might be on the tablet outside the room, but it can also be on the touchscreen in the room or on the non-interactive screen, perhaps in a reception area, and all being controlled by one simple to use back end.
That's great. Thank you for that. So Clevertouch Live is the umbrella for the digital signage platform then, really, Helen?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, we've got some questions from South Africa. I've got quite a few questions from South Africa. They're all similar. How many digital signage products did you ship last year?
Well, I guess if we're talking about total products that have our digital signage platform embedded, it's approximately 55,000.
55,000 licenses. So
obviously that's actually sort of hard pieces of hardware with the software platform embedded it. So I think everyone knows the traditional method, the traditional sort of what we call a SaaS model, sort of software as a service. I would describe us more as a HaaS model, which is a hardware assisted software product.
Okay, that's interesting. That makes you quite a large digital signage provider globally, in actual fact. There's some people who probably shipped a similar number, but that's quite large. It sounds like
yes.
you sort of need a bit more of a coming out party with the digital signage stuff to tell people A, how global you are, and B, how much you're shipping and how many customers you have out there.
I think you're right. I think that maybe we don't shout loud enough. I think a lot of our time and energy goes into making sure we're developing great products and great solutions. And the team we've got a fantastic team who just get on with it, which I think is why we are so successful. But you're right, over 200 employees globally, offices all over the world, showrooms all over the world. And it's probably easier to tell you a country that we don't trade in than to tell you a company, to list all the countries that we do trade in.
Excellent. And I know there's some big deals with display manufacturers coming up, which I know we can't talk about today. So I'll leave that. I won't talk about it. Another question from a reseller who says that they typically know you from education. Now, I can answer a little bit of that question because I know that it's well over half, maybe 3/4 of your Clevertouch Technologies business is still in education. For Clevertouch Live, the question is, what verticals do you think it best suits? And don't say all.
well, interestingly, I think it'd be semi-remiss for us to kind of just push us into one different sector, because there's a seriously compelling argument to suggest that that we can work in all, due to us having, the fact that in the system you've got 200 different templates which cater to different needs, but then actually if you don't like either one of those templates, if that's not part of your needs, you can then create your own from scratch if you wanted to. So there's a semi-argument that all of our end user partners and channel partners should essentially bring us to the tables, because there will be something that we can say in pretty much any vertical sector, really. Yeah. I don't know if you've got anything to add to that one, Helen.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got customers in retail, hospitality, health, MOD, which is military. We've got police. We've got obviously our education sector customers. There's really, and obviously corporate as well. So there's really not any market vertical that is not suitable for our product. And we go across anything, like James said. There's a way that with all the different ways we can create things, whether they use the templates we have or create their own, using all the interactive features, and as Shaun said, all that ecosystem, where it be a digital signage screen or wayfinder screen, a room booking or interactive. It could be anything in any market. So just to say what James said, bring us to the table. Clevertouch Live is actually the product you should always be leading with.
Yeah, I think I would, to wrap it all up, I would describe our company as a global audio-visual company rather than pigeonhole us into interactive digital signage or any of those, which means that we can appeal to all manner. We have specific teams in the verticals of education, corporates, healthcare, MOD, and enterprise, and retail. So those are, I guess, those are the key focus areas.
Thank you, Shaun and Helen and James. So you did say all, really, but let's leave it that if you're looking for a solution, put Clevertouch Live down on your RFP, and they can work from there, and they'll tell you whether or not you're suitable for them. Okay, another question which I'm going to read from the screen here. I won't say who it's from. If you ask a question, just let me know if you want me to read your name out. If you don't say you can read your name out, I won't read your name out. It's about user training. It says a simple user question. Is training and support live? It's a question. Is it in person? Is it online? Or is it through a help menu for setting up the Clevertouch Live digital signage? Basically, the question is the training and support live in person? Is it online, or is it via a help menu?
We cover all three. We've got a training team, and they will do on-site training. We could do remote training. We've got lots of videos. We also have our Clevertouch Academy, so you can actually do a proper full training session, and that covers people actually using the product or engineers as well. So there's definitely plenty of training opportunities depending on who the end user is and what their requirements are.
Who typically does the training if it's in person? Do you have specific trainers, or do your business specialists do it, or how does it work?
Yeah, we've got Mike Nunnally, and he's one of our key trainers. He does a lot of the corporate and other verticals as well as education. But then we also have our education team headed up by Ashley Helm, and they do a lot of on-site training for teachers, particularly with the interactive panels. So yeah, we've got quite a good range of training, a nice team. And James and Pete up in Scotland do a lot of their own training as well, if it's on site. Okay, another question from the audience. There are some questions in the queue. I'm just jumping around them, so if you put it in a few minutes ago, I'll get back to you in a second. Oh, it's an interesting one. This is about future-proofing workspaces. Excuse me. Can digital signage help organizations and end users with future-proofing workspaces? I guess they're talking about the new workspaces where we're all several meters apart from each other. And can it also help future-proof education and retail? That's a good question. That's a tricky one.
Yes, a lot to unpack there. Yeah, so I think the short answer is yes. I was working with one of the guys up here recently, and he had a particular requirement for signage, and their whole thought was to future-proof, because what they were doing for the past 12 months or so, when they were starting to get people back into the office space, was to effectively print out massive posters with this kind of COVID guidelines type thing, which actually is fine and it works, but what happens when something changes? You've got to then rip those posters down and then start afresh. And that's similar to everything, you know, if your company branding changes, again, you've got to then rip that down and start afresh. And all of this stuff costs money, whereas it's much simpler and much quicker, much easier to have some form of digital signage up there, especially with our drag and drop type interface that, you know, you've got a new logo, you drag and drop the new logo in, the color scheme will change, and then you can send the template out. You need some new requirements, you just change the requirements, and then it automatically refreshes on one of the screens or all of the screens in the estate. It's a really nice comprehensive system.
Yeah, exactly, James. I think we've been doing a lot of work with James and his team up there. And what we're finding is people want more than just that digital signage for the future. They want to be able to know that we're investing in this technology, and that's key to what Shaun and his team do, making sure that our product is future-proofed. But I think some of the things you could do by having the entire estate linked together, you've got the ability to preempt warnings like weather warnings or lockdown warnings and things like that. So a lot of our schools are going to using the entire ecosystem where they've got the digital signage out the front or down corridors for particularly now that they're going back into the schools in the last few months, they're doing directional signage as well as COVID information. So it's being able to have that information there at the ready, and like James said, not having to print every time you need to make a change. And we had a 2 metre rule, then now it's a 1 metre rule. So you're looking at a huge investment if you're printing. And so we're future-proofing that with our technology to be able to enable people to do that. And in the future, who knows what they'll need on that signage. There'll still be the ability to send information to it swiftly and easily with no cost.
Do you think that we as an industry are doing enough to tell retailers and corporations what people can do with digital signage? How do we get to those potential buyers of your product?
No, I don't think we are. I think sometimes it's quite difficult to get the message across. I think that, you know, we all have sort of friends and people we talk to, and, you know, when you describe, you know, digital signage, I think it's difficult sometimes to explain the full complexity of what it can be, you know, from a digital menu to a digital poster to an alarm system and many other, you know, sort of solutions. And I think that's the difficult message, you know, to get across. It's one of the reasons we have our showrooms, and certainly the London showroom, which is our largest showroom in the world now, so that we can show people those different things. You know, we've had the room is set up so that it can be themed, you know, so the entire room can be themed, whether it's a touch screen, a high bright screen in a window, it's a retail environment, a room booking panel, a small 10-inch room booking panel on the wall, a range of touch screens from, you know, 55-inch up to 98-inch sort of interactive touch screens. And also that we can demonstrate how you can send messages and alerts around to all of it. So I think that's sometimes it's difficult to describe what digital signage is, and it does get given different names, and we all know it gets different names, you know, from any kind of, you know, a digital system, a CMS system, a digital signage, you know, what exactly is it trying to do? And I guess we're looking at it as it's a way to get information. It's a way to get information out to a user. So some of the products that we're working on, for example, are smaller formats devices that you can imagine, you know, in the new world going forward. So for huddle spaces, smaller meeting rooms, smaller classrooms, remote classrooms, and I'm kind of calling it a companion screen. You know, so it's maybe a small from 10-inch, maybe then we go for a 19-inch, 25-inch, 27-inch, you know, 32-inch, which is out of the box, turn it on and connect it to the platform. And that opens it up to all kinds of spaces, you know, so it could be used in gyms, it could be used in car garages, it could be used in airports, it could be used in classrooms as a companion screen for the teacher just to lift up and take away. And I think then it just has, you know, so much more flexibility. But yeah, it's a difficult message, I think, to get across of exactly what, you know, what it is.
Great, thank you, Shaun. We haven't. I think you'll want to answer this one, but from a user here, what's the vertical that's most predominant for you? Again, don't say it all, and don't give anything away if you don't want to give it away. But is there one vertical that you think you're doing best in digital signage? Because we've already said that 75% of your business is education. Is there one perhaps now that is predominant and
in digital signage
in the future? Sorry, Shaun.
On purely digital signage, and you know, Helen and James will be able to answer this better. But I heard somebody a couple of years ago, actually describe a sector, and I've used it a couple of times because I quite like it. They call them Starbucks companies. And when I heard it, I kind of said, well, "What do you mean? What do you mean?" And they said, "Well, it's kind of, you know, young, innovative organisations." And I thought, "Oh, that's quite interesting," because I felt that a lot of the projects that I hear the teams working on, you know, many of them fell into those categories, you know, of these, you know, forward-thinking young organisations, sort of thing, from fast food restaurants to, I remember one project we did with a well-known high street shirt design company that wasn't using it in the retail space, but was actually using it in their kind of offices. And well, I'll let Helen and James fill in the blanks there again a bit more, but.
Yeah, I think we're probably also a little bit different regional wise as well, because we're seeing a bit of a turnout for the retail sector here in the UK, well, in England side of the UK, because obviously we're opening up fairly swiftly, and a lot of those non-essential stores, whether they be retail or hospitality, have actually started making a lot more inquiries, so we're rolling a bit out there. But I think from what I've been doing, obviously corporate is always fairly popular, and certainly with the ecosystem, they're not just looking at digital signage, they're looking at rolling it out across the entire estate so that they've got everything put together. Mm-hmm. But I'm actually seeing a lot of interest from the NHS, because that's where a lot of people are at the moment. They're in the NHS sector. They're having to have information, non-touch information in their public spaces, and they're also using interactive panels in the training rooms and the clinics. So I think that's one of our growing areas, definitely. James?
Yeah, there's a lot of interest coming from what I would call room management. So using digital signage to manage the spaces in different ways, and obviously, you know, from centrally, whether it's a hospital or a GP surgery or a dentist or a corporate environment or a training or a meeting space. But yeah.
So that's we're talking about the room reservations and room digital signage, and linking back to Microsoft Office and calendars and things like that, are we?
Yeah. That's a massively growing space at the minute. We've done quite a few kind of projects recently with large scale corporate environments where you're exactly right. They want the ability to show signage, to control the rooms, and also to then use touchscreens within the rooms, and that whole ecosystem just really kind of brings it all together via Clevertouch Live. I think it's something that now is becoming more and more of a requirement basically.
I think it's a perfect example. You know, you've got a traditional room booking tablet, if you like, outside of the room, and you know, room booking is not new. It's been around for some time, and it has a specific purpose, predominantly to say whether the room is available or not for a meeting space. Obviously, with the Clevertouch Live system that we have in place, and with some of the changing environments, that room management system is important. So obviously that room booking tablet, you want to see at the reception area which rooms are free, for example, rather than have to walk down corridors and see, you know, which rooms are free. But also that room booking panel can send a message, so it can have a message on there, it can have an alert on there, it can be running digital signage, so it can be wayfinding to point people in the direction this room is taken, the room down the corridor is available, or looking at one glance at the tablet, it's telling you what else is going on. Perhaps it's a mission statement, perhaps it's some of the policies that the business might have, or it might be just a way to, you know, to market, you know, products and solutions that the company does, or just, you know, the whole theme of the business.
Okay, I'm going to take you away from digital signage just for a second. There's always one question that you're going to get from somebody. This is, if I could do an Italian accent, I would now be doing an Italian accent, just to give you a hint where the question's from. It's quite technical. It was technical for me. It says that your CM series LFD panels, that's what we're using on the wall here, I think, have a media player built in. How does that work? Is it an OPS slot? I know what that is because I used to work for Intel, or something else. Technical, come on, you can do that.
Actually, I'm going to Shaun, being our technical director.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay, so we have both. So obviously with our background in the interactive side, we have always had our embedded engine, if you like. So it has an onboard Android media player built into the screen, and it also has an expansion slot for an OPS PC module as well. So you have both options. Out of the box, obviously, we're running everything on the embedded Android interface, but you then got the option to upscale the screen or to use it for other things by adding a PC module, an OPS PC module.
Okay, we've got a follow-on question from that as well. In terms of, is Raspberry Pi something that you support or want to support?
So one of the big sort of USPs again of our software platform is that it will pretty much run on anything. There are always going to be limitations in terms of power, sort of RAM and ROM, but we have run on a Raspberry Pi. It's not something that we're currently looking for in the portfolio, predominantly because the chipsets that are coming out at the moment, the Android-based chipsets and the Chromium-based chipsets, are very good. And we're actually considering using those to build in, other features. So, for example, we're looking at streaming live video through video capture, video playback, and the connectivity sometimes is a restriction with platforms like Raspberry Pi. But yes, it will run on it.
Okay, we're getting some juicy questions now. So, audience and panelists, you need to be on your toes. There are over 1,000 digital signage software businesses out there, which is probably about true, I think. Pretty spot on, I would say. We probably know 10, 20, 30 of those as the big ones you like. We've done our own list, actually, of the top 10 or 12. The question is, so what's different about Clevertouch? That was the question. There you go. James?
Do you want to start? Hello, James. Or I don't mind.
Oh, Adrian said James, so James can get us started.
Yeah, I can batter on. I think one of the major things is it's about that ease of use. I mean, obviously we're subscription free, which is a massive point for a lot of people. You've got unlimited users that they can use on top of that. It works with the ecosystem, all these really nice things. But actually, one of the major things is that it's easy to use. So, tell you what, if we kind of go back, we were talking about the CM series a tiny bit ago, and obviously you can just take that out of the box, plug it in, stick it on network, and away you go. So I had an end user recently who got 3 of these delivered, and he was telling me quite a nice little story. Actually, he was basically saying that previous times what would have happened is they've got the system, and then they'd have installed it. And then they'd have waited for a few days for someone to come and train them on it. And then after those few days of someone training on it, they'd have then waited a couple more days to get their head around it. And then they'd have put content on it. Whereas what he was able to do was effectively get it on the wall, follow the step-by-step, because it runs like what we call an out-of-box experience, which is basically guiding the person through the setup process. And then within 15 minutes, he had some content on there. And it was like that right there is the whole reason why I chose this, because it meant that I don't have for a week some basically black mirrors around the site. I've got content on them already. Yes, it may only be video, it may only be a photo or something, but then I can start building from that. So I think the primary point is that, yes, just super easy to use and to get your head around.
Yeah, James, that's what I've always felt is that a lot of the questions over the years I've been in this industry around digital signage come around content. So content is one of the things that people always struggle with, because if you want to create really interesting, exciting, dynamic digital signage, then the content is key, and that content can be quite difficult or challenging to create, up to the point where really you're looking at outsourcing it almost to a third party, a design company, because obviously it can only look as good as how it's created. The big USP, I think, that a big difference that we have, as James says, is the user interface, or the interface that you engage with, is simple to use. So scheduling, playing out, attaching devices is very easy and straightforward, and you can be trained on that in a very short matter of time. Probably 30 minutes to an hour, and you can be a very competent user. The other big one is creating content, and as James says, that out of the box experience that is turn it on. We wanted to have these 3 steps, which was power it up, generate your code, connect your device, and you're up and running. And then when you first open your account, so when you first create your account, it asks you a few basic questions. And the first one is that you upload a logo. So a very simple, easy thing to do. You upload a logo, And the minute that you upload that logo, all of our templates in the template gallery are customized to your color themes, your logos, and then you can add in a few little statements. So it might be a mission statement or a video. So with very few things, you can then get up and running very quickly, as James says, and then you can get more creative. So one of the things that we wanted to do was what we called sort of the Clevertouch Live platform, which was digital signage in the cloud, but it was the creation part. So it's the creation tools that are now built into Clevertouch Live and they're quite common creation tools. So it's something you're familiar with. So dragging, zooming, pinching, creating boxes, and then putting shades in there, or clocks, or any of those bits and pieces, are very, very simple and easy to use. And also it's the cross-platform nature of the software as well that makes us completely unique.
Okay, thank you. That was nicely explained by all three of you there. This leads me on to another question that we've got. I can see just by looking at all the people on this particular webinar that you've obviously got a very strong partnership base. I don't know whether it'll be cheeky to call them your channel or your retailers, but how do you get your solutions to market? How do you describe that? And basically, how do you do it? Yeah,
so we are completely trade only. So we don't sell to an end user at all. So it's purely trade, and we're working with partners and distributors all over the world. There are slightly different routes to market in different countries, but that's pretty much predominantly it. The key bit that's different really as well is, I say we don't sell to the end user, but I'll let James and Helen go into more detail, but we do engage heavily with the end user.
Yeah, it's a massive part, I think, speaking to the end user and then saying, right, okay, well, what do you want to achieve? Going with the end user as far as we can, but yeah, like Shaun said, then involving our kind of partners, channel, whatever it is you want to discuss, to then say, right, we've got this opportunity, we need you to come and fulfill it, and then they can then add their expertise, they can add their install background, that type of thing that kind of works hand in hand with us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's different, I guess, from region to region as well, because some of our partners are really up to speed with all the new products, and we spend a lot of time teaching and training them on our products, but we can't expect them to be, I guess, fully up to speed with every single one, because we're constantly bringing out new features. I mean, that's the whole point of technology, is to be ahead of the game. So our team is often, as James said, we're often doing end user demonstrations and engaging with the end user and trying to identify what their requirements are, so that we can put the right product with the right requirements, and that then helps our partners. Our partners are confident in coming to us with any kind of inquiry, and enabling us to do a lot of their groundwork, I guess, to make sure that the product comes along a lot more effectively. And with the ecosystem, it also means that they can add different products as well. So for our partners, they've got the ability to create long-term relationships. They're not just delivering a television screen in the reception that might play a PowerPoint. They're actually delivering a solution, and that will then continue to grow. I think, James, that's one of the things that we're really, I think for our team, we're passionate about that. We really enjoy what we do, and the ability to actually help partners as well as end users. I love seeing when one of our projects gets up and running, and you can walk into a room and see that that's our screen and that's our templates, or we've trained that person and it's up there, and it's really a really great feeling of accomplishment that you've done that.
Yes, thank you. I've got another question. I'm making terrible assumptions here with people's surnames to tell you where this is from, but it's either from the Netherlands or from South Africa. It's a good hint on the surname. If you ever watched Van der Velk, as an example. This particular user wants to know, are you thinking of developing, or do you have an option where the digital signage platform can link into a database? I know from personal experience, there's a couple of your competitors are very strong in taking in live data, and some of the digital signage solutions out there are well known for that. But the example they gave would be linking to a database in real estate, automatically showing the houses on the screen that are available for renting. And of course, if they're rented, then they disappear. So it's a question about databases and live data. Is there an option for that?
So, I mean, I'll pick up and I mean, guys, jump in if you want it. But yeah, so that is certainly on our roadmap, and it's something we're looking at. We have done projects in the past where we're pulling live data in, for example, from traditionally a spreadsheet, a Google document. Sometimes, we have to be a little bit more open to where that information is coming from. So it may be that that's a customizable project because the feed that's coming in may be something that's very specific to that company in the way that it's generated. But what is on our roadmap is to link into standard sort of data platforms. So I'm talking, Excel, Google, CSV file formats, and things like that. So that's something that is currently in development.
Yeah, currently anything that can be exported as a URL can be put into a web zone of a template and be live streamed anyway. So we do have the capability depending on the kind of software database that it is. So that's what we always do. We always work with that end user customer. And one of the other really good things about our development team is that we can feed back to them what our customers want, what they're looking for in the marketplace, where we think things are going in the future as well. And they're really good at doing the research and development to keep us going forward. And as Shaun says, that's something that we have come across before. We do have an interim solution that works for probably 80% of our customers. So as we build our pipeline, it gets higher and higher in the list. It'll really come along.
Okay, thank you, Helen. I've been taken to task by the user I just spoke to. The person was a Belgian, so I obviously do not even know my geographies particularly well with surnames, but apologies for that. It's a lovely name, by the way. Okay, so we have some questions about QR codes. So QR codes are one of those funny things. I think it had an anniversary recently of something like 20 or 30 years old. I'm not quite sure of the exact date. Invented by a Japanese gentleman,
Yes.
who, I don't know if he patented it or not, but of course QR codes sort of died a little bit, and then they come back and they're obviously very popular now. But the question is there any alternative or other options? I don't think they're looking for an alternative. That's not quite, I haven't phrased it quite the right way, but is there anything else you could use similar to a QR code, or is there something that might be the next QR code in terms of the way you use it for not touching things?
I think at this point in time, we wouldn't be, well, Shaun might correct me, but I don't think that we'd be looking at creating something else, because what we're relying on is that people are using their own personal devices. So you've got a QR scanner on your Android, or you just take a photo if you're on your iPhone. So that technology is already embedded in someone's mobile device. So if we create something new, then we're looking at having to roll that out across mobile devices as well. And unless I'm wrong, Shaun, we're not sort of in the industry to start doing that just at this point in time.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right, Helen. But what I will say is what's important for us is to make sure that we're integrating with whatever is out there, and that the software has been designed and built in such a way that we can. So if there is in the future, so let me QR code, as Helen is incredibly convenient. It does what it says in the tin, and it does it very well. Other ways of being pointed to or capturing information, there are other ways of doing it, but there are things being worked on as well. So I have heard, and we've been reading up on things like beaconing, which is something that's quite interesting. Things like audio beaconing, Bluetooth beaconing, where it's obviously you've got to be in the location, and that is being picked up by your mobile devices, and that is sending the information. And we are investigating those. But I think as an industry, it's a little while off. You've then got the sort of autonomous ones, so identification. So we all know there are products out there that can recognize age, male, female, gender, and they can target you with specific information as well. So, but again, that's all very doable. What we have to do is we need to make sure that you can plug any of those future products and solutions into our device, which is what we do have. So we have a programmable USB cable effectively, and so if there are anything in the future like sensors, for example, cameras, feeds, information. We can play nicely with all of those solutions.
Okay, we have another question. I did tell you the questions get more awkward from our panelists, not panelists, our audience, as we go along. There's obviously been a lot of consolidation in the digital signage industry. We've seen a number of people be acquired. I think if the truth be known, that most of the people who've been acquired were probably acquired for little or no money, a fire sale sort of thing. What do you think, each of you, is going to be not the norm? Basically, where do you see the digital signage industry moving? This is particularly the digital signage industry to the software vendors. How do you see that playing out in the next, say, 6 months? Because you've obviously got a nice base of strength. Other people haven't. So, any thoughts? Is the question from this?
I don't mind jumping in from a technical perspective, because I know some of the things that we're being asked for on a regular basis, and certainly one of the popular things that we keep getting challenged with and asked about is the sort of what I would call sort of alarms, alerts, messages. So that instant way of sending out a trigger, and I think maybe that's because of maybe COVID and the lockdown. I think it's raised more questions about that. How can I get a message out which is much more of a kind of rather than a retail message, more of a security message or that kind of information. Certainly in the US, we're getting lots of requests about things like getting information out to the masses on things like the quality of the air, which is there anything that they need to be worried about in certain areas or vicinities, sort of thing. And so I certainly think that it's going to be digital signage will be used far more for security and safeguarding.
Okay. Just a question for James. James, without mentioning any of your competitors, do you see lots of people competing with RFPs and RFQs these days? I mean, digital signage vendors, that is.
Yeah, of course there is. I mean, there's always going to be that kind of competition aspect, but I think we have got a lot of unique features in. I mean, we've gone through them all, so I don't want to kind of keep flogging a dead horse, but that does stand us above the rest. And actually, even if you just look away from the kind of product, the team itself as well, the fact that, I mean, we will all jump in to help out. If there's a training session that needs to be done, we can get that sorted. So again, we'll kind of work alongside rather than just give you a product and say, right, here you go, kind of crack on and see what's going on there. Further to Sean's point as well, with this kind of alerts and this messaging thing, we've seen it used in loads of different ways. I actually was speaking to a business centre, just a standard business centre that booked out rooms. And actually on the hour, every hour, the receptionist had to get up, knock on each individual door and say, you've got 5 minutes left, which took 20 minutes out of her day every hour just to go around these spaces. So again, what they're going to do now is program in a button trigger that effectively they tap on the desk, and then all of a sudden every single one of the rooms comes up and says you've got 5 minutes left. So even just something just as small as that saves that person 20 minutes each hour every hour is going to add up to something gigantic in the long run. So I even had another one where there was a college and they were getting sick of the students parking across the loading bay. Just something that happens every college. There's never any parking. So it gave them the ability to just tap a button and then say, would car with X registration plate please get a shift on? So again, it's just super flexible. And it's I always say to people, it's kind of your imagination more than anything as to what you want to achieve with it.
Excellent. Look, as we approach the last few minutes of the call, I'm going to ask for some quick answers. One question is, will your products ever ship with inbuilt cameras? I notice here in the showroom, most of your screens, in fact, all of your screens, I think, have got some camera on top. Is it a plan to have any inbuilt camera support, or is there?
Well, actually, I could probably go one better than that, Adrian. I've actually got a sample. I've got a prototype, which I'm currently working on. I can even show it. Actually, not very well, but there you go. Now, this is a module. So we're calling it our sensor module, and it's compatible with our new generation of Impact Plus 2 screens. And it's a module that plugs into the bottom of the screen, and it has a 4K camera built into it, but it also has a number of sensors built into it from PIR to light sensors to air quality to humidity to temperature, so that we can capture that information. So we're not looking at building them into the chassis themselves, because camera technology is moving so fast that in actual fact the idea of having the module we think is a much better idea. And we thought, well, okay, whilst we're doing it, let's stick a load of sensors in there that we can use for other things.
Excellent. Okay, thank you, Sean. We'll link you up to the person on Zoom who asked that question. Another one, just very quickly to somebody. This is a price-sensitive one. Feature-wise, you are excellent, says the questionnaire. The person asked the question, but they're actually in India. We're good enough to compete with features, but price-wise, you guys are a little bit on the high side. I know that's going to be difficult for any digital signage software vendor. Does anybody want to just very quickly answer my question?
I think that we mentioned this earlier in the beginning. I think this is one of the reasons why, or how we're challenging the norm, is that our price model, it may appear to be upfront a more higher investment, but for us there's no ongoing fees. So whilst every model in the industry is different, but ours is completely unique with that no ongoing fees. So I think that's where we come into our own with the price market, because no one has to budget in the future for anything they need to add onto it. So even if they start with, let's say, five digital signage screens, if they add another 5 or another 25, there are no additional fees other than the investment in the actual hardware that's already licensed. So it's not like they're paying £1,000 per year for each different screen, or even £100 a month. It's all inclusive. So I think that we are quite competitive price-wise if we're looking at a long-term investment for a complete solution and the warranty that we offer.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of end users just. I mean, I was chatting to someone the other day, and we were like, "This is the price," and he was like, "Okay, so what's the price for next year?" And I was like, "Oh no, you've got the upfront cost. Okay, so what about the year after that?" And I was like, "No, that's it." I think it's one of those that, yeah, like Helen said, it's a long-term thing rather than a short-term.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you guys and Helen. Okay, we're going to wrap up in a second. This madman here who chaired this last hour session was the one who gave you the silly title for the webinar, which I won't repeat here. But I'm going to ask each of our panelists to try and sum up into, if I ask you the question, let's start most north with Tom Davey up there in Scotland. How is Clevertouch Technologies challenging the norm? Can you sum that up for me in a minute or less?
I can do my best, yeah. I purely, and as I've said this 1,000 times, it's one of those where we're listening to end user feedback, taking that into account, and then creating a user interface based off of that. So if I'm a day one user, chances are I'm going to be able to do something with the system. I think that right there is massive. You know, pretty much every single other signage platform out there will require somebody to go and show them something. Whereas ours, with a little bit of knowledge, you'll be able to go and create as much or as little as you want to create. Was that enough for me diving right in there?
Nice. Yeah, I'd give you a goal for that one, James. For me, I go back to the last question. It's all about the cost model. Even if we add new features, we don't increase the cost model. There is no subscription ongoing fee. So our team are putting together features. As you've heard today, Sean's got a whole range of different kinds of features and functionality and products coming into our pipeline. So I think for me, we're challenging the norm because we're not charging customers for that development as we go into the future.
Brilliant, Helen. Okay, Sean, your challenge is to beat the shortness of both of those summations.
I'll probably say that we are probably the only one in the world that can say that we're fully cross-platform, simple to use, future-proofing, and free, and it's digital signage for the masses.
Sean, that was excellent.
Well, actually, I think he just got 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
So I get the gold now.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, I think James may well get the silver, and I think Sean's got the gold there. Okay, look, thanks everybody. Thank you for everybody who's dialed in.
Thank you.
Webinar. There will be a recording of it, has been made or will be made, and will be made live, and we'll let you all know what it is. So we're going to leave you to that. We hope you enjoy the rest of your Monday. If you're in the UK, be careful. We're in lockdown, and I know we can hug and things like that, but as Boris has said, let's be sensible. For those of you, we've got some people in India, we send our best, and those in South Africa as well. So let's touch base again in a couple of months' time. So thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you.